In this clip, we're going to look at a market structure which is called monopolistic competition. Now, think back, we've had a look at a competitive market, we've jumped up the other end of the spectrum and looked at monopoly. We've come back down the competitive end of the spectrum, but we're using the word monopolistic to suggest that despite the fact competition is still pretty fierce, firms do enjoy a small degree of market power. Let's have a look at how that might come about. We're still talking about many relatively small firms. Now here, big difference between this and pure competition where we use the word identical or homogeneous. Products and services here are differentiated, so businesses and firms go to great lengths to try and make their product and service appear different. So we jump down here, for example, to non-price competition being evident. Yes, advertising, promotion, packaging, location, service, colour, decor, gimmicks, etc., etc. They're trying to make us believe that what is essentially an homogeneous product is actually somehow different. So the differentiation here, as far as we're concerned, tells us that the products are close but not perfect substitutes. So we might sow the seed there that maybe the demand curve for the individual firm here is not going to be perfectly inelastic or elastic. It's going to be relatively price elastic. So small degree of market power, similar to perfect competition, low barriers to entry, no massive startup costs, no huge problems with licenses and patents, etc., etc. So some of the industries we're talking about here: cafes, restaurants, hairdressing, salons, retail, fashion, etc., etc. And my favourite example, your fruit and veg produce markets, where, for example, we go back up to our key feature here, apples. How many types of apples are there? Well, the vendor goes to great lengths to convince you that their apples really are different. For example, organic. They might contain a certain vitamin that's really good for you, ostensibly, but they're a different colour, and of course they're stacked up in a lovely pyramid and it looks really good, and it's sort of attractive choice. So what's the demand curve that this individual firm faces? We're suggesting relatively price elastic. So as I said, close but not perfect substitutes. Now, so what we got, of course, down sloping average revenue curve, or our demand curve. And of course, as we found out with the other two market structures, what's our profit maximising level of output? I know you know, MR equals MC. So of course, we know where MR is because AR is down sloping. Same rule as we did for Monopoly. We need to position MR as falling, and of course that's why the average is falling, because the marginal value is less than the average, etc. And of course, what does it yield us? Our magical little point, namely our quantity of output that will maximise profits. MR equals MC. Well, of course, what we can find is that it's costing the firm OCAQM, but that quantity of output is attracting a price of P. So what we can see is that this firm is enjoying a degree of short run or short term economic profits, CABP. Largely because we imagine of this successful product differentiation. But, come back here, low barriers to entry. What did we see in pure competition? The existence of economic profit attracts new players. It sends out that little message to entrepreneurs to bring your resources this way and you'll make more money. So, what's going to happen? What's actually going to happen is that the profits will be competed away by new firms entering. and of course you'll lose some of your market share. So the firm's demand curve will move to the left. Now, how far will it go? Well, it's possible, for example, that it may yield an economic loss. I'll quickly show you what that means. Okay, what do we got? We've got an economic loss. Check it out. Our demand curve has moved to the left. We've lost market share. So our profit maximising position, still MC equals MR, generates a price of OP, and therefore revenues of OP BQM, but it's costing us to produce this quantity of output, QM ACO. So what have we got here? We've actually got short run losses. Now, what did we see when we had a purely competitive market? Some firms say, that's it, too much for me, and they walk away, and they'll actually close their doors and they'll take their entrepreneurial resources and their firm elsewhere. And when they do that, of course, there's less players in the market. So what I want to get across to you here is that there's this potential shifting of market share depending on whether firms are exiting or entering the industry. So where might we end up in the long run in terms of these adjustments? Let's have a look at that. Okay, what have we got? What we've got here is what we call the tangency solution. So as you can see, the firm's average revenue curve, their demand curve, has either moved left or right, but we believe in the long run, depicted as being tangent to average total cost, and importantly, left of what you and I know to be minimum ATC. They do have one thing in common with the purely competitive firms right here, namely that, as you can see here, they are making what we would call normal profits only. So that would be that TR minus TC is zero economic profit. So here's TR, 0 P A QM, and of course TC is 0 QM A P. Normal profits only, in the long run. In the long run. Although, as we saw, short run profits are possible with successful differentiation. Now, how are these firms performing with respect to our notions of productive and allocative efficiency? Let's check it out. We need to go back to that magic point again. There it is, minimum ATC. Now, if the firm was behaving, say, like a purely competitive firm, they'd be producing this quantity of output. They're not. They're producing a lower quantity. And of course, we know that that's not allocatively efficient because there's the marginal cost associated with producing this level of output, and the price they're charging is significantly higher. So P does not equal MC, which is our precondition for allocative efficiency. And clearly, they're not operating at the point where a purely competitive firm would be charging. So here's that small degree of market power we've alluded to. Now, what it does throw up is that the firm is operating to the left of minimum ATC, a situation we refer to as operating with excess capacity. And we see it back in our little example of our produce market where the vendor, the fruit vendor, has clearly got way more stock on display than they can possibly hope to sell. But of course, we like that as consumers because it gives us more choice and we feel good about that. Next clip, another mouthful, oligopoly. I'll see you next time.